The surprising part is that these aren't unusual products or obvious hazards. They're things most of us use without a second thought. Food containers, cutting boards, cookware, cleaning supplies, and even the way we prepare meals. Because these exposures happen little by little, they're easy to overlook. But over months and years, they may place extra stress on your body in ways many people never realize. Unlike food poisoning or a chemical spill, these aren't immediate dangers that make you feel sick overnight. Instead, they're low-level exposures that can gradually build up over time. Researchers continue studying how repeated contact with certain environmental substances may influence inflammation, gut health, blood vessels, and overall wellness. The good news is that reducing your exposure usually doesn't require expensive equipment or a complete kitchen renovation. In many cases, a few simple changes can make a meaningful difference. Today, we're going to explore several hidden kitchen hazards that many people unknowingly encounter every day. More importantly, I'll share practical ways to reduce these exposures while keeping your kitchen both convenient and healthy. Before we dive into the list, it's helpful to understand why these everyday exposures deserve attention. Our bodies are incredibly resilient. They're designed to handle occasional contact with many different substances. The concern isn't usually one single exposure. It's the repeated exposure that occurs day after day, year after year. Scientists have found that many different environmental stressors may affect similar systems inside the body. Some can contribute to chronic inflammation. Others may interfere with the balance of beneficial bacteria living in your digestive system, commonly known as the gut microbiome. Certain substances are also being studied for their potential effects on cellular health and oxidative stress. Healthy blood vessels are another important piece of the puzzle. Inside every artery is a delicate inner lining called the endothelium. This thin layer helps blood flow smoothly throughout the body, delivering oxygen and nutrients to every organ, including your brain, heart, eyes, kidneys, muscles, and skin. When this lining isn't functioning properly, circulation may become less efficient. Because every organ depends on healthy blood flow, protecting your blood vessels is one of the most important parts of maintaining long-term health. Now, let's begin with one of the fastest-growing concerns in environmental health research. Take a look around your kitchen. Plastic is almost everywhere. Food storage containers, water bottles, cooking utensils, disposable cups, takeout packaging, plastic wrap. It's become such a normal part of daily life that most people rarely question how often their food comes into contact with it. The challenge is that plastic isn't completely permanent. As plastic products age, become scratched, or are exposed to heat, they can release extremely tiny particles known as microplastics. A microplastic is simply a very small fragment of plastic, typically measuring less than 5 millimeters across. Many of these particles are much smaller than that, becoming microscopic or even reaching the nanoscale, making them impossible to see with the naked eye. Once these particles enter food or drinks, they may also enter the body when we eat or drink. Over the past several years, scientists have detected microplastics in an increasing number of places where they were never expected. They've been identified in drinking water, seafood, table salt, human blood, lung tissue, breast milk, and researchers have even reported finding them in various organs throughout the body. While scientists are still learning exactly how these particles behave after entering the body, growing evidence suggests that reducing unnecessary exposure is a sensible step for overall health. One of the easiest ways microplastics may enter food is through heating plastic containers. When plastic is exposed to high temperatures, especially inside a microwave, the material can break down more quickly, increasing the release of microscopic plastic particles. That's why many health professionals recommend transferring food into glass or ceramic dishes before reheating whenever possible. Another commonly overlooked source is the plastic cutting board. Every time a knife slices across the surface, tiny scratches are created. After hundreds or even thousands of cuts, extremely small plastic fragments can separate from the board and mix with food during preparation. Although these particles are invisible, repeated exposure over many years is something researchers continue investigating. Fortunately, reducing your exposure doesn't require throwing away every plastic item in your kitchen overnight. Instead, make gradual improvements. Choose glass storage containers whenever practical. Store beverages in stainless steel bottles when possible. Avoid heating meals inside plastic containers. And if your plastic cutting board has become heavily scratched or worn, replacing it with a quality wooden cutting board may be a worthwhile upgrade. These simple habits can help lower unnecessary exposure while keeping your kitchen practical and easy to manage. Now, let's move to another hidden exposure that often surprises people even more than microplastics. Unlike plastic particles, heavy metals aren't manufactured materials. They're naturally present in the earth and can be found in soil, rocks, and water. Elements such as lead, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury have always existed in the environment. In extremely small amounts, they aren't unusual. The concern begins when people are repeatedly exposed to higher levels over many years. Your body has natural systems that remove many unwanted substances, but some heavy metals are much harder to eliminate. Because of that, small amounts may gradually accumulate over time. This isn't something that happens after one meal or one glass of water. It's the result of repeated exposure that continues month after month and year after year. That's why researchers pay more attention to long-term exposure than occasional contact. One place where heavy metals may be found is something nearly every household depends on every single day: tap water. If you live in a newer home with modern plumbing, the risk may be relatively low. However, homes built decades ago sometimes contain older plumbing materials that may allow trace amounts of lead to enter drinking water, particularly if pipes or fixtures haven't been replaced. Since water is used for drinking, making coffee or tea, washing vegetables, cooking rice, preparing soups, and countless other daily tasks, even small amounts can become an important source of repeated exposure over time. For this reason, many health experts recommend learning about the quality of your local drinking water. If your home has older plumbing or your local water quality is uncertain, using a certified water filtration system designed to reduce heavy metals can be a practical investment. Let's move to another surprising source: rice. Millions of people eat rice every day because it's affordable, filling, and naturally gluten-free. But rice has one unique characteristic: it absorbs minerals from the soil more efficiently than many other crops. Unfortunately, if the soil or irrigation water contains arsenic, the rice plant may absorb some of it during growth. This doesn't mean you should stop eating rice altogether. Instead, it's about preparing it wisely. A simple habit that many nutrition experts recommend is rinsing rice thoroughly before cooking. Place the rice in a bowl, add clean water, stir it gently with your hands, pour off the cloudy water, and repeat the process several times until the water becomes much clearer. Some people also cook rice in extra water and drain the excess afterward, which may help reduce certain naturally occurring contaminants depending on the type of rice being prepared. Another food that surprises many people is chocolate. Chocolate begins with cacao beans, and depending on where those beans are grown, the plants may absorb small amounts of heavy metals from the surrounding soil. Several independent studies have detected varying levels of cadmium or lead in certain dark chocolate products. The important point is that levels can vary significantly from one brand to another. This doesn't mean chocolate is unsafe or that everyone should avoid it. It simply highlights the importance of moderation and choosing product from manufacturers that regularly test for quality and safety. Spices are another category worth mentioning. Spices add wonderful flavor and are often associated with health benefits. However, because many spices are imported from different parts of the world, quality control standards can vary. On rare occasions, investigations have found excessive lead contamination in certain imported spices, including turmeric and a few blended seasoning products. In some cases, contamination occurred naturally, while in others it resulted from poor processing or manufacturing practices. Fortunately, this risk can often be reduced by purchasing spices from trusted companies that perform regular testing and follow recognized food safety standards. The key message isn't to become afraid of your pantry. It's to become a more informed shopper. When you consistently choose reliable brands, prepare foods carefully, and pay attention to water quality, you can significantly reduce unnecessary exposure without changing your entire diet. Remember, we're not talking about sudden poisoning or emergency situations. We're talking about the small exposures that may quietly add up over many years. Fortunately, this is one of the easiest areas where simple lifestyle choices can make a meaningful difference. And while heavy metals usually enter the body through food or water, the next hidden exposure comes from something completely different. It isn't what you're eating, it's what you're using to clean the very place where your food is prepared. Let's talk about household cleaning chemicals and why they deserve a closer look. Now let's shift our attention to something that's sitting under almost every kitchen sink: cleaning products. Most of us think of these products as tools that keep our homes healthy. And in many ways, they do. They remove grease, disinfect surfaces, and help reduce harmful germs. But at the same time, many of these products contain powerful chemical ingredients that deserve a closer look. The goal isn't to scare you into throwing everything away. Instead, it's about understanding what you're using and finding simple ways to reduce unnecessary exposure. Think about how often you clean your kitchen. You spray the countertops, wipe down the stove, clean the sink, disinfect cutting boards, wash the floor, and sometimes you do all of this in a room with very little ventilation. Every time a spray cleaner is used, thousands of tiny droplets are released into the air. While many of them quickly settle onto surfaces, others remain suspended long enough to be inhaled. Most people never notice this because the droplets are microscopic. You can't see them, but you can breathe them. Many household cleaners also release compounds known as volatile organic compounds, often called VOCs. These compounds slowly evaporate into the air, especially immediately after spraying or wiping surfaces. Researchers have been studying VOCs for years because repeated exposure may contribute to eye irritation, headaches, throat discomfort, or respiratory irritation in some individuals, particularly those who already have asthma or sensitive lungs. Another ingredient commonly found in kitchen cleaners is bleach. Bleach is extremely effective at killing bacteria and viruses, which is why it's widely used in homes and hospitals. However, it's also a strong chemical. When used incorrectly or mixed with certain other cleaning products, it can produce irritating fumes that affect the eyes, nose, throat, and lungs. That's why reading product labels is always important. One rule every household should remember is simple: never mix bleach with ammonia or acidic cleaners. Certain combinations can create dangerous gases that should never be inhaled. Fortunately, following the instructions on the label and using these products carefully greatly reduces the risk. Another category worth discussing is disinfectant sprays and disinfectant wipes. These products became incredibly popular over the past several years, and many people now use them several times every day. While disinfectants certainly have their place, routine overuse isn't always necessary. For most everyday kitchen cleaning, warm water combined with regular dish soap is often enough to remove dirt, grease, and many unwanted germs. Saving stronger disinfectants for situations where they're truly needed can help reduce unnecessary chemical exposure. Now, let's talk about something many people actually enjoy: the smell of a freshly cleaned kitchen. Walk into a home that's just been cleaned and you'll often notice scents like lemon, lavender, citrus, pine, or fresh linen. Those fragrances make the room feel clean. But here's something interesting. That pleasant smell isn't usually coming from real lemons or fresh flowers. In many cases, it's created by a blend of synthetic fragrance chemicals. Manufacturers aren't always required to list every individual ingredient used to create those fragrances because they're often considered proprietary formulas. Researchers continue studying how repeated exposure to certain fragrance ingredients may affect sensitive individuals, particularly those who experience allergies, migraines, or respiratory irritation. Again, this doesn't mean every scented product is harmful. It simply means that choosing fragrance-free or lightly scented products may be a reasonable option if you're trying to reduce unnecessary exposure. Another simple habit that makes a surprisingly big difference is ventilation. Whenever you're cleaning your kitchen, Open a nearby window if weather allows. Turn on your range hood or exhaust fan. Allow fresh air to circulate through the room. Good airflow helps dilute airborne particles and removes lingering odors much more quickly. Sometimes the simplest solutions are also the most effective. You also don't need expensive specialty cleaners for every surface in your kitchen. For many daily cleaning tasks, ordinary soap and warm water work remarkably well. In fact, proper cleaning technique is often more important than using the strongest chemical available. Cleaning regularly, wiping spills promptly, and preventing grease from building up usually produces better long-term results than relying on harsh chemicals alone. If you're curious about the products you currently use, consider looking them up through independent consumer safety organizations that review household cleaners and explain the ingredients they contain. Becoming an informed consumer is one of the easiest ways to make healthier choices without spending more money. At the end of the day, cleaning products are valuable tools. The objective isn't to avoid them completely. It's simply to use them wisely, follow safety instructions, avoid unnecessary exposure, and create a cleaner indoor environment for yourself and your family. Now we've talked about chemicals that may come from plastics, food, water, and cleaning products. But there's one more hidden problem waiting inside almost every kitchen. And unlike chemicals, this one is alive. Let's talk about bacteria, kitchen sponges, and one everyday habit that many people accidentally get wrong.